Hi people, it's Archivist here, coming at you with yet another vlog video, and today I want to touch on a topic I actually brought up a long time ago now, and that video was, are Macs good for gaming? And I thought now that we've gone through 2 OS revisions since then, so when I made that video I was demonstrating Arkham City on Mountain Lion, and now I'm demonstrating World of Warcraft on Yosemite. And actually it's pretty good. I did go to the Badlands, which isn't a particularly demanding area, but it looks pretty good, it looks pretty decent. I mean, it's not quite up there with my Windows PC, but it's pretty good. But that brings me to my point. And this is the thing, whenever Apple introduce a new operating system, they introduce a few cool new features, but there's never ever a big reason to upgrade. You know, I very rarely see something that means, oh, I've got to have it, I've got to have it. It is cool to have a new UI because although the skeuomorphic look of Leopard was pretty awesome, it is a bit long in the tooth by this point, so it's nice to see something refreshing, albeit a little flat. And also it's nice to have increased integration with iOS devices. But there's not a big selling point, and I think Apple should really start to focus on improving their gaming side of things. And I think people might say, well, Apple aren't for gamers, they're for professionals. Well, the thing is, if you look at their iPhones, their iOS devices, one of the biggest selling points for those things is the App Store. I mean, the iPod Touch really thrives on the App Store. And it's just the Mac App Store. The Mac App Store in comparison to the iOS App Store is a joke. It just is. We get games later on, if ever. So that's the thing. And it's going to put so many people off buying a Mac. But if they came in and said, we're going to increase fundings to make sure that these developers are on side with us, we're going to make sure we have a good API like DirectX is for Windows. If they brought something like that in, then so many people would choose to buy a Mac. I mean, quite frankly, if Macs were decent for gaming, I would have no need for a Windows PC. That's where I'm at right now. I've got my Mac for everything but gaming, but I have to have a Windows PC for gaming. That's the way it is. I'm not a massive fan of Windows 8, but you know, it gets the job done. It's like luxury and necessity for me. A fairly frequent question I see when I'm going on forums for the new Mac operating system release is, will this increase my performance? And sadly, the answer is usually either a very slight increase, I remember from Lion to Mountain Lion, or actually a decrease, as there was in some games from Mountain Lion to Mavericks. And actually, some people have reported that there's been a substantial decrease in performance on World of Warcraft from Mavericks to Yosemite. They're saying, I think one guy went as far as to say he went from 120 frames per second to 20. And the problem is because Macs, you know, they're in the minority because only Apple manufacture machines that run Mac OS, whereas there are several manufacturers that make Windows machines. So naturally, they're in the minority. That means that a software update to fix those problems is going to come about much slower, if ever. And that's something that's very frustrating. So when I made that original video, are Macs good for gaming, I remember saying that there was great potential, but it really needs to be fulfilled, and Apple and developers are the people who need to make it go that way. And sadly, I haven't seen a huge improvements. Sure, new games have come out since then, really great games, like I think Tomb Raider is probably one of the best games you can get for Mac, and it really is very good. There are gems available, and the thing is, if you took Mac outside of the equation, just considered it like a console, it'd actually be very impressive. But the fact is, it's very difficult not to look at it as just a Windows PC but with less games available and a weaker performance. It's hard not to look at it that way, and I wish that wasn't it. I really do. That's why I'm making this video, because I want to express my concern. I'm not trying to attack Macs, and there are certainly good reasons to get them, but it just feels like an area that is in dire need of improvement, and you know, these issues do need to be addressed. And if Apple were to come out and say in whatever they're going to call their next operating system, so it'd be 10.11, and they said, you know what, we're going to focus on performance here, we're going to get developers on side, I'd just be like, I'd be willing to pay for that. I think a lot of people would, and plenty of people would probably think, well, I was a little wary of getting a Mac before because I'm a big gamer, but now I'm genuinely thinking about getting one. So I think Apple could actually benefit a lot if they went down that route. And I don't think they have anything to worry about with off-putting professionals because, as I say before, they've had enormous success with their iOS devices, their iPhone and their iPad, by introducing games. I mean, I think a lot of people associate iPhones with games like Angry Birds and Clash of Clans, etc. However, after saying all of that, I do need to make sure I clarify something because this could cause some confusion. My concerns are directed at the Mac software, the operating system, not the hardware. Since they shifted to Intel, the internals of a Mac are essentially very similar to a PC. Of course, there is always the option to boot camp your machine, but when you have quite a small hard drive, partitioning your machine is a difficult decision to make. Or you could run a virtual machine inside of macOS, however, that brings about its own performance issues. So this concludes the video. If you have any similar concerns regarding the gaming side of the Mac operating system, and make no mistake, my concerns were purely directed at the gaming side of things, then do let me know in the comments below. As always people, thanks very much for watching and see you next time.